Well, hello, and welcome to the TechSource Partners podcast number 1. I'm excited to be here. My name is Jason Neiman. With me, my two lovely co-hosts, Ken Rita, Joe Rita, from TechSource Partners, a division of PAG. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the podcast today.
Happy to be here, Jason.
Yeah.
Thanks for having
Good
us.
to see you, Joe. We're going to go through a couple of things today, a little introduction about TechSource Partners, being that this is number 1 podcast. But we want to definitely get some good information out and answer some great questions that we know people might have about TechSource. So, Ken, I would love it if you could tell us a little bit about the history of TechSource Partners as it pertains to PAG and how that all came about.
Certainly. PAG, Profit Advisory Group, we started the company about 20 years ago. And that company was born out of the fact that during the early 2000s, the telecom IT marketplace was kind of crazy. There was a lot of billing mistakes, a lot of errors. And so my partner and I just switched jerseys and started helping clients level the playing field. And during that time, we worked primarily in the audit space. That's our bread and butter. And then as time moved on, we were asked more and more to help source services for some of our clients. And therefore, we spoke with a branding company and came up with the idea of starting a new division that kind of better suits from a name perspective the services that we actually offer. That's what bore out TechSource Partners. We're not going to abandon the Profit Advisory Group legacy, but we're certainly going to add to it with the TechSource Partners, where we're going to be focusing on procuring, auditing, and guidance with our clients. So we're pretty excited about the changes.
Great. And in that realm, what are you thinking? Are there new services that you're offering, or is it pretty much a rewrap and a rethinking of how you do your current services?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of both. It's more of a refocusing of our core business. You know, auditing is still always will be and still is our core competency and our core business. But as we're growing and as the IT world is kind of combining or merging, if you will, with the telecom world, sourcing becomes an critically important aspect of our business. And with the TechSource Partners name, it lets people know that that's something that we can do and that we're very proficient in.
Right. And what do you think PAG's and now TechSource Partners, what do you think your biggest point of differentiation is in the marketplace?
I think our attention to detail and our kind of like we have always felt we look under every stone. We make sure that we do a deep dive. There are software programs out there that kind of catches all the low-hanging fruit. What we do with our team, Joe and his team of auditors, is that we just do a deep dive and we make sure that that everything is looked at. The other thing I think that makes us a little bit different is that we started a philosophy when we started the company that we would only invoice our clients for things that we actually touched, that we actually impacted, because that's something that, the world is dynamic, the business world, so therefore things are changing all the time. But we only focus on our fee structures are all built around realized actual savings that TechSource Partners was engaged in.
Yeah, great. So Joe, tell us a little bit about how the audit process works. I'm always curious about how that works and what does your team go through and what's the process?
Right. So first we're going to get usually a month's worth of all invoicing on telecom bills from a client, and we're going to build a database, which is going to be an inventory. So we're going to get service addresses, all the service types that you're going to have at that location, data circuits, down to the phone numbers, and we're going to build that out for you. So then we start building an inventory so we can go to them and say, this is what we're seeing that you have.
Yeah.
And then we're going to reach out to the vendors. That's when we're going to get contract information to make sure that what you have is actually what you're being billed for.
What are some of the big things that you come across?
Closed locations that you're still paying for. So when we build out, that's the greatness of the inventory is they'll be like, well, 100 Main Street, we closed that a year ago. And it's like, well, you're still getting invoices there. And that's one way that we can start seeing some savings quickly. We also see that, the contract says you're supposed to be paying $500 for something. Well, you've been paying $750 for it for the last year. That's another way that we realize savings. So when we get a new audit, the first thing we're going to do is start building out an inventory. And that's when the client is going to send over their invoices and we start building out this inventory. That's going to give you service addresses, service types, how many phone numbers you have, how many data circuits you have at this location. And then the next step is going to be reaching out to the actual vendors. We can get contracts from them, and that's when the next phase of our audit is going to be contract compliance, which is where we make sure that you're paying for what you're actually being billed. And then we can make sure that, the locations that should have been shut or closed down, you're not paying for that service anymore. That kind of stuff is where we start getting savings from them. And then the third phase is going to be price optimization, which is where we kind of know what best in class pricing for the services that you have are, and we make sure that you are paying that actual pricing.
And do you often find that those technology partners are going to reimburse you for past years, maybe if you were overpaying, or can you negotiate some of those reimbursements?
Yeah, I mean, they won't always go back as far as they've been, not billing correctly, but we can definitely negotiate with them to get you something back.
Yeah, probably about 7 years ago, the carriers got smart, if you will, and there used to be a clause that would say you can go back to the inception of the mistake. And we had a client that went back 17 years where the mistake was found, and they had to credit it all the way back. Well, about 7 or 8 years ago, the vendors put in there, you have 30 days to identify the problem and open a ticket. If not, your billing is automatically deemed acceptable. Now, that was their method. We come back and we talk to the client, we talk to the carrier, and we're very, very good at being able to get them to go back in a reasonable time frame, depending on the vendor and so forth. But it was funny. It used to be they would have to go back all the way to the beginning. Well, now they don't have to legally, but a lot of them do it just because it's the right thing to do. And they want to have long-term relationships with with their clients.
And what do you find, on an average percentage-wise, what are you guys finding that can be a typical savings for a company like, in different industries? Let's talk healthcare first.
And that's great because healthcare is a big part of our business. But we're still averaging now over the last 5 years about 16 to 23% is that the average. We've had a couple, one we're working on today actually, that's going to be closer to 30 or 40% savings. That's an outlier. We have others that might be in that 15, 16%. Those are the lower end ones. But so we're pretty confident telling our clients or our prospects that we're going to be in the high teens to low 20s is really what we're still averaging, and that's over the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. Joe, tell me a little bit about your team, and what kind of things are they doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, so generally my team is reaching out to vendors, talking with them, making sure that they're engaged with them, because a lot of vendors, when you reach out to them, they kind of push you aside. And so staying on top of the vendors, a lot of data entry, building out that inventory. It's a long process. I mean, some of our clients have hundreds of invoices, and just building that out can take weeks. So staying on top of that, organizing it in a way that we can present it to a client where it makes sense. And yeah, just, looking for those billing discrepancies that we find.
So Joe, tell me a little bit about your team. Obviously, you've got some great experienced people on your team, but love to hear a little bit more about them.
Yeah, so we have a great team. We've got 8 people that on average have been there about 5 years. Actually, one of my guys celebrated his 8-year anniversary yesterday, which was awesome. But yeah, 8 people. They've just been killing it. They're really knowledgeable, and they always come through.
Their experience must be important, right? Onboarding somebody to go through this process obviously would be difficult.
Right.
Because they have to learn about all the different industries and all those kinds of things. So the tenure is really critical for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing that's really interesting is that we've learned over the years that hiring people that don't have a lot of telecom experience or IT experience sometimes is actually a benefit, because we can teach them the way Joe's methodology and how he works. There's none of these preconceived, I know this because I know that. Joe just tells them what to look for, and it's really worked out really well. Because Thomas, one of the guys that we talked about, he used to be a personal trainer until 8 years ago. We hired him, and he's now one of our best auditors.
Wow.
He knows his stuff, and plus he's a former Marine, so that makes us excited.
That's great.
Excuse me. As Thomas tells me, you're never a former Marine.
You're always a
Marine.
Yeah, that's for sure. So here's a question for you, Ken. What holds companies back from making the decision to actually go through this process?
That's a great question, and one that I've had so many CIOs and CFOs tell me, and I hate when they say this phrase, but they do. Gosh, this is a no-brainer. You're going to look at all my stuff. You're not going to charge me any money, and then you're going to, just bill me for a portion of it. But the problem is that once you get down into the weeds, if you will, and you're dealing with the IT folks or the telecom folks, the ones that actually are made these decisions and so forth, you get a little bit of a pushback from them because they don't usually like the idea of somebody coming in and second guessing. But what most of our clients learn is that we partner with them. We don't say, oh, well, how did this happen? Or we just say, hey, what do you think we could do to fix this? And then we work together with them. And so it's really, the pushback becomes fear, if you will, of the people that made the decisions that we're going to find this smoking gun. And that's really not what we're about. We're a very, we call it like a very low key, and we're not typical auditors that are going to come in and, rough shot over everything. We're just going to come in, find our stuff, present it to our guys and say, hey, what do you think of this? And then together we present it to leadership.
Right. It's great. Why, I'm always curious, why do you offer a no-cost audit?
Well, it used to be when we first started the company, we were one of the first in the industry, which is amazing, but that it used to be you identified the savings and then you billed the client for 2 years up front. And so when we started the company, I was like going, that's crazy. Let's do only on realized savings and pay as you go. And all of a sudden now the industry, that's what everybody does. But the idea is that it gives us an opportunity, and I've had many a CIO and CFO tell me they like the fact that we're a performance-based company because we have skin in the game. The more we find, the better we eat, right? So that's something that's been great for us. We've actually dabbled about 15 years ago with charging a flat fee, and it fell flat. Our clients like the idea that zero cost, no upfront money, unless we find savings, and then we share in the savings. And it used to be a much bigger share to us back in the beginning. Now all of a sudden it's kind of dwindled a little bit, but it's really becomes a win-win in that we have the opportunity to make good money, and we save our clients money, and they're never out of pocket. That's the thing that all my sales guys point out on every sales call. Never out of pocket.
Yeah. Until you create savings, and then it becomes a shared
Right. It's
savings.
instead of sending your carrier $100, you're now only going to send him $80, and you're going to give me $3, and you're going to keep type of thing. And then so it's a redirection of money.
Right. That's great. And how does there's the audit process, and it all goes through the process of let's figure out where you're at. Let's say that could take how long, Joe? How long does an audit process normally take?
On average, like a month or two.
Yes, we try to get the initial findings within 60 to 70 days.
Yeah.
Okay. And from there, after the audit's complete, what other services does TechSource Partners then offer its clients beyond just the audit process?
Well, during the audit process, in that final phase that Joe had mentioned, where we're going to do best-in-class pricing. At that particular time, we're going to offer them like for like. You stay with your current carrier, you stay with your current service. We're also going to offer them, hey, if you moved from carrier A to carrier B, you could even save more money. If you moved from an old technology to a new technology, you can save even more money. So one of the things that we do that's kind of like piggybacks onto the audit is what we call like technology road mapping, where, a lot of our clients are healthcare clients and they still have services that were installed in 1960 because it still works. We're trying to move them along that technology continuum to be on more updated, more efficient, more cost-effective technology, and the carriers are help pushing them along now because the carriers don't want all that old stuff either. So that's one of the best parts about our company is that we have all the database and the benchmarking abilities to show different companies. We have over 300 companies that we track and their services and their cost structures, and then we can offer the client different technology. So that's really the fun part of it for us is that we find them the savings and then say, hey, by the way, you can buy new equipment that's going to modernize. You can, what we did during the pandemic is we were able to have several of our big clients bolster their remote workforce area by saving them money, and they repurpose that money for some additional bandwidths and stuff for off-site workers.
That's great. And what kind of new trends are happening in the industry right now as far as technology and, we talk about the word telecom. I always joke with you, like we've got to get that word out of our vernacular
Right.
because it's not really telecom anymore. It's all IP based. And so what kind of new things are happening on the horizon?
The big thing currently, and it's really not that new, is data networks connecting their different locations and so forth used to involve very big, expensive equipment, big routers and racks and all sorts of other stuff. And over the last 3 or 4 years, people are moving to an SD-WAN or a software-defined wide area network. It's a much smaller box, less expensive, and it can offer clients savings as well as a lot more flexibility in what type of circuitry they put through it. The other big thing is obviously old, we call them POTS lines, plain old telephone service, that old copper that everybody used to have. That's all being replaced by, like you had mentioned, IP or cellular. So it's pretty exciting time, especially with the different technologies, with unified communications is a big one. Voice over IP has been around for a while, but that's really being more well adopted nowadays than before. But we still have clients that are stuck in, like I said, the 60s and 70s. We're trying to push them along. So those are some of the trends. Another big trend that I know AT&T and Verizon Wireless loves to tout is 5G, which is going to allow networks to use cellular technology instead of hardwire technology. Certain clients that have compliance issues or HIPAA compliance or PCI compliance, they are a little bit gun shy on utilizing the cellular because of the potential of a breach. So that's important, as well as a lot of clients now are looking to us for advice on things like cybersecurity or intrusion detection, things like that. So that's the great thing about telecom or IT, because they've kind of combined now, is that we used to say at MCI that it was many changes instantly. It still is that way today. Everything's changing all the time.
Yeah. And I would guess that, your company has to change. You've been around for quite some time now. You're doing all the right things. And what's I think is interesting, and probably the most interesting, is that the audit process really leads the charge, right? You're doing something where you're figuring out how to reallocate funds for companies, how to save them funds. It's critical in these times to make sure we're doing those types of services for clients and doing something different, because so many companies in your space do exactly the same thing, right? Oh, well, we can offer you computer hardware or cloud services or something. Really, your audit process is special.
And that's where we rely on Joe and his team really to set the table for all the other things that we can offer clients, all the other technologies and services. So that's always going to be our anchor, if you will. It's always going to be what we focus on, because it, like you said, it sets the table. It makes those other things available down the road, and cleaning up and understanding what you're paying for and not overpaying and all those other good things really is the foundation of our company.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, Joe, from you on, the audit process or your team, or, opportunities for companies to look at, maybe to think about this a little differently?
And just another thing I wanted to add was, not only are we going to help implement your savings, but for a full year, each month, we're going to go in and make sure that it is still billing as we said it was supposed to. So you get another year of us looking at everything to make sure that it's still what it said it was supposed to be. So that's another thing that we add on at the end there. And then, yeah, it's just, we're another set of eyes. Let us look at it.
We used to say that, worst case scenario, you have an independent third party verification by experts that everything you're doing is perfect. Luckily for us, that doesn't happen very often. But I will mention to you and to the audience that Joe's team worked a long time on creating our tracking mechanism. Oddly enough, we call it the change tracker. We probably need to talk to our marketing firm to come up with a better name than that. But it's very, very detailed. It goes down to every single thing that we changed, every single thing that we touched. The client can go back and say, oh, wait a second, that was on bill 123 at 100 Main Street, and you changed this circuit from X to Y. They can really see everything, and it's taken Joe and his team, have refined that over the last 3 or 4 years. And now when we send it out to people, the sample, they're like, holy cow, this is simple. We can see everything that you're doing. And it's really been a game changer for us.
That's great. All right. Well, now, there's only one thing left to do, which is to talk about how do people reach you. Where's the best place to go to find out more information?
I would say that go to our website, TechSourcePartners.com. There's links there that will, for you to engage with us directly. There's also some calculators there, so you can kind of figure out what savings opportunities you may be able to generate from your company. So that's usually the best. We also go to quite a few trade shows, and if you check our Twitter account and on LinkedIn, we post when those expos and so forth are up and coming.
Great. All right. Well, love to thank you both for joining me today. It's always my pleasure to hang out with you guys.
Absolutely.
And we'll look forward to audit opportunities for TechSource Partners with their clients. We're also going to look forward to the next couple of podcasts, which are going to be really exciting. We've got some really great guests that we're going to bring on from different companies, different industries. We might even have one live from a trade show floor, which might be kind of cool, and we're looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
Maybe in Nashville. So a great city, by the way.
In June.
What was the date of that again, Ken? So, we're looking forward to that, and we look forward to more podcasts in the future. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.